Welcome to Small Stories, Big Healing, where old teachings speak softly into modern lives.
When you cannot quiet your mind, when your thoughts rush like a restless river, and even silence feels loud, have you ever wondered what it truly means to be present? Have you ever noticed how the body can be safe, yet the mind can still feel chased? How you can be sitting in a warm room with nothing urgent in your hands, and still your thoughts keep knocking. What if I said the wrong thing? What if I fall behind? What if something changes? If you know that feeling, this short story is for you. Once upon a time, there lived a young woman named Elara. Elara was kind and capable, the kind of person others relied on. She remembered birthdays. She helped neighbors carry heavy baskets. She stayed late when work needed finishing. But inside her own chest, Elara felt as if she were always arriving late to her own life. When she ate, she barely tasted her food. When she walked, she only measured the distance to what came next. When she spoke with others, part of her mind stayed behind, replaying something from yesterday or racing ahead to tomorrow. Even on peaceful mornings, her thoughts ran like quick feet on stone. One day, Elara stood by her window and watched sunlight touch the road, and she suddenly realized something that frightened her. She could not remember the last time she truly felt one moment, fully, gently, and without being pulled away. That afternoon, with a tired heart and a busy mind, Elara went to visit an old gardener who lived at the edge of the village. People said he had calm eyes and slow, careful movements, as if he had learned to live without rushing his own spirit. His garden was not grand. It was simple. A few rows of herbs, a small path of smooth stones, a wooden bench worn soft by time, and in the center, a shallow pond that reflected the sky like a quiet mirror. Elara found him kneeling in the soil, pulling weeds with the patience of someone who did not consider time an enemy. She cleared her throat. The gardener looked up, and his gaze did not hurry her. Elara said, "Why does my mind never stop talking, even when nothing is wrong? I feel unsettled. My thoughts keep running, and I keep running with them." The gardener's face softened, as if he had been expecting her. He stood, wiped his hands on a cloth, and without a word, walked to a small shelf near the bench. He returned holding a clay jar filled to the brim with muddy water. "Hold this," he said, "and tell me what you see." Elara took it carefully. The jar was cool and heavy. She stared into it and frowned. "I see nothing clearly. The water is cloudy." The gardener nodded. "Now, place it on the table," he said, "and do nothing. Just wait." Elara hesitated. "Just wait?" "Yes," the gardener said, "and while you wait, notice what your mind does." Elara set the jar down. At first, she leaned in close, almost willing the mud to settle by force. But the gardener did not give her steps to follow. He did not give her a goal to achieve. He simply sat on the bench, as relaxed as the pond behind him, and watched a small leaf drift across the water. Elara felt impatience rise in her body. It was familiar, the feeling that if she was not doing something, she was wasting something. Her foot tapped once, then twice. Her mind whispered, "This is silly. This won't help. I should be fixing things." The gardener said, quietly, "Listen. Even now the mind wants to stir the water." Elara swallowed. Minutes passed, and slowly, without being shaken or stirred, the mud began to settle. The water cleared little by little, like a fog lifting from a field. Elara blinked. She could see the bottom now, not perfectly, but enough to notice the change. The gardener finally spoke. This is your mind. When you constantly stir it with worries and judgments, clarity is impossible. Mindfulness is not forcing the water to clear. It is simply allowing stillness. Elara stared at the jar, and something inside her loosened. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. "But how?" she asked. "My thoughts don't stop. Even if I sit quietly, they shout louder." The gardener smiled, a gentle smile that did not argue with her experience. "Mindfulness does not demand silence," he said. "It does not punish you for having thoughts. It teaches you to stop living inside them." Elara looked down. "I don't understand." So the gardener stood and motioned for her to follow. They walked along the stone path, past small flowers and growing herbs. He stopped beside a rosemary bush and he said, "Tell me what you smell." Elara hesitated, then leaned in. The scent was sharp and clean, like a memory of rain and green hills. "I smell rosemary," she said. The gardener nodded. "Good. For a moment you were here." He took one small leaf between his fingers and crushed it gently. "Now," he said, "tell me what you feel." Elara watched his hands. They moved slowly, as if every motion was chosen, not thrown. She reached out and rubbed the leaf between her own fingers. "It feels textured," she said, "almost waxy, and warm from my skin." The gardener's eyes softened. "This is mindfulness," he said. "Not as a grand idea, but as a simple return." Elara frowned. "But my mind will wander again." "Yes," the gardener said. "And when it does, you return again. Not with anger, not with shame, with kindness." They continued walking. A bird called from a branch above. Wind moved through the trees, and the leaves answered like quiet applause. The gardener stopped near a small basin of water, where a ladle rested. He dipped the ladle, and the water made a soft sound, like a whisper. "Listen," he said. Elara listened. At first, she heard only water. Then she heard more. The gentle drip, the tiny ripple, the distant hum of village life beyond the garden. And beneath it all, she noticed her own breath, quiet, steady, waiting for her attention. For a moment, Elara felt the strange relief of not chasing her thoughts. Still, doubt returned quickly. "What about the worries?" Elara asked. "My worries feel important. If I don't think about them, I feel unprepared." The gardener looked at her kindly. "Preparation has its place," he said, "but many worries are not preparation. They are storms you keep rehearsing until they feel real." He led her to a corner of the garden where young plants grew in neat lines. He handed her a small watering can. "Water these," he said, "but do it slowly." Elara began, and at first she watered the way she did everything, quickly, efficiently, mind already elsewhere. The gardener raised a hand. "Stop," he said gently. "Try again." Elara exhaled. She lifted the watering can again, this time noticing the weight of it, the cool handle against her palm, the pull in her wrist. She tilted it slowly. A thin stream of water poured out. She watched the soil darken. She watched the small leaves tremble as drops landed like tiny blessings. And something unexpected happened. Her thoughts softened. Not because they disappeared, but because she was no longer feeding them with frantic attention. She was feeding the plants instead. The gardener said, Your mind is like this garden. Where attention goes, life grows. Elara paused. The words landed gently, but firmly. If you give all your attention to fear, he continued, fear grows thick. If you give your attention to the present becomes a home. Elara set the watering can down. For the first time in a long time, she realized her mind had been treating now like a hallway, a place to rush through on the way to something else. She whispered, "So mindfulness is staying?" The gardener nodded. "Yes," he said, "and staying does not mean you trap yourself. It means you stop abandoning yourself." Elara was quiet. The gardener walked over to a small pile of stones beside the path. He picked one up and placed it in her hand. The stone was smooth, warm from the sun. "Close your eyes," he said, "and feel it." Elara closed her eyes. At first, her thoughts protested. "Is this helping? What if I'm doing it wrong?" Then she felt the stone again, its weight, its steady presence, its simple truth of being exactly what it was. The gardener spoke softly, as if he were speaking to her nervous system, not just her ears. "Mindfulness is an anchor," he said. "When the mind drifts, you do not punish it. You simply return to an anchor." "What anchors?" Elara asked. The gardener held up 3 fingers. "Breath," he said, "body, and what you can sense." He placed a hand over his chest. "Breath," he repeated, "it is always with you." He tapped the stone path with his foot. "Body," he said, "it lives only in the present." He gestured to the garden around them. "And your senses," he said, "sound, touch, sight, smell, taste. They bring you back when the mind tries to carry you away." Elara opened her eyes. "But what if the thoughts are painful?" she asked. "What if I'm thinking about something I regret?" The gardener's expression became even gentler. "Then mindfulness becomes a lantern," he said. "It lets you see pain clearly without becoming lost inside it." He walked to the pond and pointed to the reflection on its surface. "Look," he said. "The pond reflects the sky, but it does not become the storm. It holds the reflection and stays a pond." Elara stared at the water. She thought about her own mind, how it reflected every fear, then became the fear. "How do I stop becoming it?" she whispered. The gardener said, "By learning one simple sentence." He looked at her and spoke slowly. "I am noticing a thought." Elara repeated, "I am noticing a thought." The gardener nodded. "Not," he said, "I am in danger. Not," he continued, "this thought is truth. Just," he said, "I am noticing a thought." He let the words settle. "Say it again," he told her. Elara breathed, "I am noticing a thought." And then something strange happened. The thought that had been gripping her, the fear of the future, the shame of the past, loosened as if it had been a tight knot and someone had gently touched the string. Not gone, but less powerful. The gardener said, "Thoughts are visitors. Some are helpful, some are heavy. Mindfulness is the practice of being the house, not the visitor." Elara swallowed hard. She realized she had been living like a guest in her own mind, constantly rearranging herself to make room for every passing worry. As the sun lowered, the gardener brewed a simple tea. They sat on the bench. Elara held the warm cup and noticed the steam rise. The scent was soft and earthy. She took a slow sip, and for a few quiet breaths, she was simply there. Warm cup, cool air, gentle light. No dramatic transformation, no sudden perfection, just a small moment of peace that felt more healing than all her frantic thinking. The gardener watched her and said, "Do you understand now?" Elara nodded slowly. "I think so," she said. "Mindfulness isn't making the mind empty, it's returning to what's real." The gardener smiled. "Yes," he said, "it is learning to live one honest moment at a time." Elara looked at the jar again, now clear on the table, and the lesson settled in her heart, simple and timeless. Mindfulness is not about controlling your thoughts, it is about noticing them, without chasing them or fighting them. When you pause, when you breathe and observe, the mind settles on its own, just like the mud in the jar. And perhaps the most important part is this: you do not need to be perfect at mindfulness to be helped by it. You only need to return. Return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to what you can sense, even if you return 1,000 times, because each return is a quiet act of healing. In your own life, mindfulness begins in small moments. Feeling your breath when you are overwhelmed. Softening your shoulders when you realize you were tense. Listening fully to someone you love without preparing your reply. Noticing the taste of your food instead of eating with a worried mind. Placing a hand on your chest and whispering, "I am noticing a thought," when anxiety tries to become your whole world. You do not need to escape your thoughts. You only need to sit with them long enough for clarity to return. And when the mind rushes again, as it surely will, remember the jar. Do not stir. Do not fight. Do not shame yourself. Let the mud settle. Let the water clear. Let yourself come home. If you learned something today, or if Elara's journey brought you even a small sense of calm, I invite you to stay connected with us. This is Small Stories, Big Healing, short tales to soothe your heart and guide your steps. If this story should reach more people who are struggling with a restless mind, like this video, share it with someone who might need this gentle reminder, and comment below, what does mindfulness mean to you? Your one comment may encourage someone else who feels overwhelmed tonight. And if you'd like more stories that bring gentle comfort and insight, please subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next healing tale. Until then, remember this: stillness is not something you find, it is something you allow. Small Stories, Big Healing will be here with another story whenever your heart needs a gentle reminder.